31 of Public Laws of 1975, also known as the Sunshine Law. This meeting has been approved by resolution adopted at the organization meeting held on January 2nd, 2024, and in a revised resolution at the public session meeting held on January 22nd, 2024. Notification has been sent to the record. Notification has been posted to the Woodridge Borough Hall, the Woodridge Memorial Library, tapinto.net, and the Woodridge Board of Education website. Meetings of the Board are open to the public, and all members of the community should feel free to participate. The board announces that under the long-standing policy, it will not discuss in public any comments made by members of the public concerning individual staff members. Before coming to the board, the chain of command should be followed. There are two portions of the meeting reserved for comments made from the public. The first at the beginning of the meeting for agenda items only, and the second at the end of the meeting for other items. Issues raised by the public may or may not be responded to by the board, but all comments will be considered. The board requests that all members of the public be mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Due to confidentiality and legal rights afforded by the state of New Jersey, members of the public are asked not to speak negatively or in derogatory manner about an employee of the board or any student. Please be advised that all or portion of this meeting is being live streamed in real time and will be recorded for rebroadcasting at a future date. Roll call.
Mr. Fallon?
Here.
Mr. Garvin?
Here.
Mrs. Milano?
Here.
Mr. Vaccaro is absent. Mr. Biamonte?
Mr. Biamonte.
Mr. Biamonte?
I can't hear her. Yeah.
Should I take us off mute? No.
Oh, we are muted.
Hold on. Mr. Biamonte, are you there? Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Nieves? He's on mute. Mr. Nieves? Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on to presentations, recognition, and awards. Mr. Albro, presentation 2024 New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessments, followed by the 2024 WIDA Access Assessments for multilingual learners.
Good evening. This is the time of year where we begin to get state results of our assessments back into district. And depending upon the timing of the receipt of these results and being sent home, I'm obligated to report these results out within a certain time frame. This evening, I'm reporting out on the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessments, which were administered to our 11th graders this past spring. And shortly thereafter, I will give the results of the WIDA access testing, which is for our multilingual learners, of their grasp of the English language at the end of the year. So now the NJGPA is something that is still relatively new, and it basically is the state's assessment to determine whether a student is graduation ready in English language arts and math. Now the results, despite the fact that our juniors will be only seniors and then be out of our district, the results do help us because the tests are based upon prior years. So based upon the student mastery of those curriculum concepts, we can then make adjustments to our programming. We still get the same type of test results that we get from NJSLA in terms of which questions students succeeded in, which questions they struggled in. We also can identify potential focus areas in preparation for the spring of 25. Our students this coming spring, our current incoming juniors, will take this test next spring, and we can perhaps make some adjustments to instruction and sequencing to get those students better prepared for the assessment. We had 122 valid scores this year in our junior class, and they'll be our senior class next year. And in comparison, we had about 70 scores of the senior class that just graduated when they were juniors. So we have almost 50 students more. Now, the NJGPA is designed to measure to the extent to which students are graduation ready in English language arts, ELA, and mathematics. Graduation readiness is reported separately for each content, language arts and math. The ELA component is aligned to grade 10 standards. So from a curriculum perspective, in terms of the benchmarks, the test is aligned to grade 10 English. And the mathematics component is aligned to Algebra 1 and geometry. So that's basically the first 2 years of math for most students. Students on a higher track might be more accelerated in their learning. Students who take, but who do not meet the minimum required score on each component of the assessment will have the opportunity to receive additional supports and may take the following steps. And as a note for the public, we have 10 students who are not graduation ready, and therefore they will be following one of these pathways. They can retake the assessments in the summer or fall. They can meet a designated cut score from the menu of a substitute competency test, for example, AccuPlacer, which is what our district uses. They can complete a portfolio appeal. The minimum scale score requirement for both content areas is 725 or greater. So for our 10 students, they're entering their senior year, and in their schedule, they will have an AccuPlacer class for mathematics, as well as for language arts. And the unique aspect of it is the students are getting support and can take the test as many times as they wish, the AccuPlacer. If they demonstrate mastery in the AccuPlacer assessment, then they've satisfied their requirement. So some students, within the first 6 or 7 weeks of school, I guess when the heat is on, they pass the assessment. And that would be then recorded with the state as their pathway to reach graduation proficiency. Now, looking at the data, I've given you the class of 25, the juniors that took the assessment this past spring, and compared them to the previous class, the class that just graduated recently. So in English language arts, again, about 50 more students took the assessment this spring than last. We had 86.9% of the class determined to be graduation ready, as compared to 91%. From a state perspective, 81.6% of the state were graduation ready, as compared to 80.5%. And then, of course, the not yet graduation ready numbers, 13.1% for our class, 18.4% for the class average of the state. In mathematics, we had 71.9% of our students pass the mathematics assessment, as compared to our score last year of 58.8. That's some wonderful improvement. This is now their third or fourth year back into state assessments, which finished for most of them in their freshman year. As compared to the state is at 54.7%. So for the state, 45.3% of their students have to find one of those other pathways in order to prove graduation proficiency. And of course, not yet graduation ready for our district, we had 28.1. And it's roughly about 10 students either taking one or both content areas. I'm obliged to report this out in aggregate groups, and the numbers that you see are the percentage of having met requirements as compared to have not met. So for female, any group that's larger than 10, any group that's fewer than 10 does not get posted for public knowledge. So our females in language arts, 90.9%, males 83.6, white 90.5, and all the way through IEP students without an IEP, students with an IEP, students who are economically disadvantaged as opposed to students who are not economically disadvantaged, and 504 students and Asian. So all those different subgroups have 10 or more students represented in that 122 student class. And that's for language arts. And moving to mathematics, our females, our males, our white students, Hispanic or Latino, IEP, economic disadvantage status, Asian, and 504. Language arts results are better than math. Now, as I mentioned before, just like any other state assessment, the district receives information concerning, obviously not the test items, however, we do get an understanding of what content areas or particular curriculum strands each question addresses. We find that we get information which is the easiest question, which is the most difficult question, and then we have a chart determine us how we did as the questions became more difficult. And we use those items to figure out, is there something we can give these students in September, the junior class, get them caught up to speed, in addition to making tweaks moving back. We don't have to wait to 11th grade. We can address these matters in 10th and 9th based upon what we have in the test analysis. Obviously, the strategies will benefit both the spring 24 test takers in their senior year, as well as those who test in the future. In the future, as we've had more classes having taken NJSLA and NJGPA, we can start to establish a link to the success in one as compared to the success in other. Right now, we have a few classes that hadn't taken an NJSLA assessment in quite a while, but as we advance in time, that'll be another data point for us to use. As I said, it helps us to identify and address gaps in the curriculum instruction, activate prior knowledge, and review previously learned skills. I'm moving now to our WIDA Access for ELLs results. This is an assessment that's given in the spring to our students identified as multilingual learners, formerly known as ELLs, English language learners. That might be an ESL class. This past school year, the state changed its code. Now they're referred to as multilingual learners. And this assessment is given to every student who's identified as a multilingual learner. This test is different from what we normally see in the NJSLA or NJGPA. This is walking across 6 different ratings from beginning or entering to reaching. For a student to be able to exit from these particular classes to benefit their English mastery, they have to score 4.5 or better, in addition to taking a look at the other measures. So the data you see here is how each cluster of students, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, 3, grade 4, 5, if you see an N, that means there's fewer than 10 students in that group. And it shows you the breakdown. So the positive factor for me is when I look at the 3, I have students that are heading that way. These are kindergartners, first graders. If they continue their progress, hopefully that 67% sliding over next year, and we have a good number of students that are exiting this year. At the bottom of my slide, I have put up for you the last 3 years. And what I would like for you to focus on is the number of students in the program, which of course are increasing as our population increases, and the percentage of students that are passing, which is a credit to the classroom teacher, the ML teachers, the support by parents at home to help our students to learn. This past year, we had 26 of 71 students, or 37% of multilingual students, K to 12. They'll be able to exit the program as long as all of their other benchmark scores, et cetera, line up with. You want to make sure that the test score is not a form of luck. You want that to be able to be backed up by what we see in the classroom, the improvement, et cetera. And again, note, we have kindergartners who entered the program as a kindergarten that are now exiting as kindergartners. That's the amount of growth that has taken place. Now, the beauty of this program is that should a student exit and somewhere down the road seem to have more difficulty, they can re-enter the program. They can come back. So as I mentioned earlier, starting last August, the state changed the code from a nomenclature standpoint and moved from ELL to ML. Preschool students now can be identified as multilingual learners. It's resulted in revisions of curriculum, more widespread professional development, because all of our students participating in this program might receive one class a day in that program, but are in their mainstream classroom for the rest of the day. So they're getting the instruction in English language arts in their classroom, and then also seeing the multilingual teacher individually or in small groups to get more instruction. This past September, indicative of our growth as a district in this certain population, we added another full-time teacher. We now have 2 full-time teachers for multilingual learners. Moonaki sends their students to our high school. That is normally the result. That normally results in our numbers in the high school. Seldom do we get a student moving from grade 4, 5, 6, and then into the high school remaining in the program. And sometimes we get students who directly come to our school from another country, not from a school in the United States, and they become part of our program. And again, the data, I can recall starting as the principal at Doyle School, and I was in charge of this program in 2009, and we had 3 kids from K to 6, all from the same family. That's how far we've grown. So as of now, the district has, if all those students exit, we'll have 41 total students in the ML program, which is 30% of them will be in the high school, but we've yet to screen a kindergarten student. We have 100 students coming in September, and they will all be screened depending upon, there's a home language survey that's disseminated to get an idea of the language that is spoken at home, and then the teacher, when meeting the child, gets an idea, and then eventually they might get referred for more thorough screening. So obviously, these numbers are going to increase. But also what's indicative of the growth in the program is where the percentages used to be mostly in high school, we're seeing the swell in this population in the kindergarten and grade 1 area. And the good news is we had many kindergartners exit after the kindergarten year. And I have a feeling, based upon the growth we've had in our student enrollment, we're going to continue to see the influx in the early elementary years. And if this district ever were to bring preschool back, which is the plan, those students would also be eligible to receive services. So down the road, we can be looking at additional staffing to meet those needs. But at the same time, obviously, the sooner we intervene with those students, the sooner they have a chance to exit the program. And that's probably the ultimate goal. That concludes my presentation. When we talk to items that are not on the agenda, if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. And this will be placed on the website either probably by the end of the day tomorrow. And you can look for me to come back perhaps in the September meeting with the NJSLA results, which we have started to receive in piecemeal. Not entirely yet, but we're starting to get those things. A reminder to our parents, the NJSLA results will be sent home to the parents once we receive them from the state, which probably won't be until the start of the school year. But our NJ GPA results have gone home, and our access results will be going home shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albro. On to our board administrators report, Mr. Morrell.
Good evening. As my office prepares for the beginning of the school new year, I would like to thank everyone for their continued help with our new digital purchasing order system. Our district produces approximately 1,200 purchase orders each year, and each purchase order contains 4 different sheets of paper to process, including the voucher that has to be signed by the vendor prior to any payments being made. This was previously done by mailing the voucher to the vendor through the mail for signature, and then the vendor returning it by mail to my office. Thanks to our board approving a contract with DocuSign a few months ago, we are not able to send the vouchers to the vendors electronically for a signature and receive it back via email. I have received them back in as fast as 15 minutes, and usually by the end of the first day or second. Previously, it could take weeks, and it was also very time-consuming to keep track of the outstanding vouchers. This new format will save my office a considerable amount of time processing purchase orders. I would like to thank Mr. Albro and the board for their support of yet another project that allows our business office to become more efficient. My second item is that we received our SDA grant funding in the amount of $87,098, which will be utilized to create the main security entrances at the high school and intermediate school, and also repairs to the high school roof, one of the boilers, and the gym wall. If anyone has any questions regarding any of these items or anything else, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Fallon. Good evening. My report will be short tonight. Happy summer again to everybody. Right now, we still have our summer programs going on in the intermediate school and in the high school, both our extended school year for our special ed students, as well as our summer transition program or summer acceleration program for our general education students. And that's going to continue through July 31st. The programs are usually done before noontime every day, depending upon which program you're in. And we're also sharing space with the recreation department, because as we all know, the Doyle School right now is not accessible to anybody. And I wish to provide an update about the Doyle School renovation. As I mentioned in the last meeting, the existing original footprint of Doyle School is undergoing a renovation right now, while at the same time, work is getting done to prepare for the eventual extension or addition to the Doyle building, which should be ready by this time next year. However, we are opening school this year, and the renovation is going very well. At this point, we have successfully abated all of the asbestos in each classroom, and the classroom floors have been stripped down. And when the children return, they'll see tile floors that all match. They'll have new cabinetry, new desks, new chairs. And I was thrilled today to walk through the building. Every classroom will have a brand new smart board. And that's 29 smart boards at Doyle School. And the most we've ever had at Doyle School previously, when we had our most recent addition, those 4 rooms had smart boards. This is a tremendous opportunity for our students and our staff. And this all comes from the collection of the borough and the Board of Education, the money from the borough, the money from state aid. And again, I don't know if I ever thought I'd see the day where I can look at 29 smart boards in the Doyle School building. They're not up yet, but they're there, and they're going to be up shortly. Outside on the playground, the field is being leveled, and you'll also notice some construction towards the 10th Street side, where they're essentially widening the play area because there's going to be a school building projecting out over it, and they're building a retaining wall to support that area. I have to comment that the construction team is large, and they're working all the time, and I probably walk through twice a week after school, and for all that construction, the school is incredibly clean. Every bathroom in the original building is being renovated. We're adding bathrooms to 2 or 3 more classrooms for our kindergarten students. Those are all wonderful things, and I can't wait to see the project come to fruition, perhaps take some pictures and put them on our website. And then, of course, when we open our school building in September, if it were to be back to school night being the first opportunity, I'd welcome everyone to come take a look at what the community has done for our students at Doyle School. and I appreciate your patience. Again, if you're seeking information concerning Doyle School, you need to reach out by email to Ms. Schmidt, school principal, or Mrs. TC, the administrative assistant. They are located at the intermediate school right now. If you choose to call them, their numbers are routed to where they are in the intermediate school. So if you are transferring in, if you are transferring out, if you have any type of question, you will get a response from either Ms. Schmidt or Mrs. TC. And if you fail to get any response, please do not hesitate to contact me. Mr. Fallon, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Alva. Going back many, many years ago, before I was even on the board, I know how important the smart boards were to you, and I think that's a great addition to Doyle, and I'm so happy to see that. Trustees, anything else? Okay, on to approval of minutes. Upon the recommendation of the Superintendent, the Board of Education approved the minutes of the following meetings: public session meeting of June 10th, 2024, and June 26th, 2024. Can I have a first? Mr. Garver, second. Ms. Milano, roll call.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes.
Mr. Garvin.
Yes.
Mrs. Milano,
Yes.
Mr. Biamonte. Mr. Nieves.
Okay, on to the committee reports. Trustees, is it all right if I read through them? All right. Yeah, thankfully. All right, so curriculum instruction. Number one, approval of field trip requests. Number two, approval of out-of-district placement termination. Approval of student-teacher classroom observations field experience internship. Approval of submission of district emergency virtual remote instruction plan for the 24-25 school year. Approval of evaluation report. Approval of ordering CST protocol testing materials and online scoring for 24-25 school year. And lastly, approval for CST prize Chapter 14 booklets. Under personnel, we have an acceptance of resignation. For Woodridge only, we have approval of summer acceleration learning personnel appointments, approval of request for leave of absence, approval of a personnel appointment. Under policy, none at this time. Under building and grounds, we have an evaluation for facility requests, including Moonachie, and one without Moonachie. For finance, we have approval of the bills list. We have approval of the monthly financial reports of the board secretary and treasurer, approval of certification of balanced budget, approval of budget transfers, and approval of fundraiser. Under board operations, we have approval of statutory appointments for the 24-25 school year, approval of the submission of language instructional educational 3-year plan LIEP for the 24 through 2027 school years to the New Jersey State Department of Education. Approval of the articulation agreement between the agreement with Bergen Community College for the dual enrollment program for the 24-25 school year. Approval of comprehensive equity plan extension statement of assurance for the 24-25 school year. Approval to apply for and accept IDEA funds for the 24-25 school year. Approval of the annual contract agreement for the provision of hospital-based instruction, Newbridge Medical Center, Paramus, New Jersey. Approval of the contract renewal with Rubicon West LLC for the 24-25 school year. And we do have a walk-on under personnel for the approval of personnel appointment for Woodridge only. Upon recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education approves the following personnel appointment. Alyssa Lesho, Woodridge Intermediate School, special education, full-time. Compensation is $58,000 a year. BA Step 2. Start date 9/1/2024. End date 6/30/2024. Trustees, any questions, comments, concerns?
I would just like to correct the end date on that. It's 6/30/25. It was a typo.
Sorry. So 6/30/2025 on that walk-on P5. Okay, before we open this up to hearing of citizens, anything for new business, trustees? No? Okay, opening up to hearing of citizens for resolutions only. No? Hearing none, seeing none, closing the hearing, citizens to resolutions only. There's no comments or questions regarding resolutions, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, trustees, looking for your consent We will start with Munaki included. For curriculum instruction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Personnel, number 1. Nothing for policy. Buildings and grounds, number 1. Finance, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Board operations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Can I get a first? Mr. Milano, second. Mr. Garvin, roll call.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes.
Mr. Garvin,
Yes.
Mrs. Milano,
Yes.
Mr. Bimonte, Mr. Nieves.
Okay, moving on to resolutions for Woodridge only. Curriculum instruction, there is none. Personnel, we have 2, 3, 4, and the addendum number 1, which is P5. Policy, none. Buildings and grounds, 2. Finance, none. Board operations, none. Can I get a first? Mr. Garvin, second. Ms. Milano, roll call.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes.
Mr. Garvin,
Yes.
Mrs. Milano,
Yes.
Mr. Bimonte, Mr. Nieves. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Abel, you have something for communications?
I want to let the board know, and I will share copies with them, that as far as correspondence, I received 2 notes from our co-valedictorians, Anthony Wong and Matthew Habib. They just wanted to thank the board for the medals that they were given at our awards night and for the opportunity to attend Woodridge schools. Of course, Mr. Garvin, Anthony mentioned where he's heading in the fall, and he's heading to Purdue University. And I will share copies of those communications with all the board members. I thought that was very nice of them.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Trustees, anything for unfinished business? No? Okay, so before we open the hearing of citizens, do you want to do the questions first and then? Okay, so we'll open up the hearing of citizens for the questions first.
Mr. Fallon, I have 2 questions that were sent to us via email that I would like to read into the record. The first is from Bonnie Taylor. Good evening, Woodridge Administration and Board of Education members. Please consider this email my official request to be recorded on public record for the Monday, July 15th BOE meeting. Number 1, Woodridge Parent Advisory Network has not been included in the discussions regarding the reduction of the child study team. Woodridge Parent Advisory Network is requesting district administration to explain how these reductions will impact their child services. Mr. Albro was asked via email to hold a meeting to speak with special education families. Will the board support a meeting for special education families in the near future? Question number 2, will the board members release which board members plan to run for re-election? The deadline is July 22nd. No reason to be vague now. Thank you, Bonnie Taylor. The second question that I would like to read into the record. This email is to inquire about the reduction in force of the child study team and how this reduction affects our remaining staff and their ability to assist our students. I would like this question asked tonight at the BOE meeting, please. Can you please explain how the cuts in child study team, the termination of a behavioral analyst, and school psychologist can be based on reasons of economy, efficiency, organizational supervision, or other good cause? What will this mean to the remaining members of the child study team in relation to their increased caseload? How can such a reduced team function to benefit our students? Thank you. Chris Amiels. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Albro. You want to?
As far as Mrs. Taylor's first question, the board has directed me to put a meeting together, and I will work with our summer schedule and get something in place before the start of the school year, with time and place being advertised for all of our special education parents in the district. As far as Mrs. Amel's question, I point the community back to our board meeting video from May 6th, which was our budget hearing, which was followed by a presentation by myself concerning my recommendation to break away from Moonachie in terms of our shared child study team services and have it run solely with Woodridge staff. And I mentioned, and it was on the agenda that evening, that as a result of breaking away from Moonachie, we were going to have a reduction in force because we no longer needed 8 staff members. We had 3 staff members who were full-time in Woodridge every day last year. We had our director part-time in Woodridge. We had our 3 other case managers part-time in Woodridge. And we had our behaviorist 4 out of 5 days a week in Woodridge. In conducting the reduction in force, obviously the concern was for what would the impact be on the programs. For one, I now have 5 people in Woodridge every day, whereas in the past I had 3 with some staff members in Moonachie. There's a concern for the caseload, the impact on the caseload. In my report that evening, I mentioned how in the year that just closed, inclusive of Moonachie cases, our case managers averaged 49 cases. And 3 of those case managers had their cases split between Moonachie and Woodridge, so they're conducting meetings in both districts. With our new configuration as of today, we will average 52 or 53 cases, up from 49, and again, entirely in Woodridge. At our meeting on May 6th, the reduction in force impacted our behavioral analyst and our school psychologist. Our behavioral analyst started with us with COVID money. That was money that we had, and we thought it would be a good idea to bring that program in. It is not the first time that our district has employed a behaviorist. Prior to employing our own, we employed a contracted behaviorist from Southburg and Jointure. Obviously, we have students who require in their individual education plan services from a behaviorist. We are obliged to supply those services to our students. Those services will be delivered by a contracted vendor, most likely Southburg and Jointure. At that meeting, there was some concern raised for a school psychologist, there only being 1 on the team. The concern was for the amount of testing. As fate would have it, following that meeting, we had a learning disabilities teacher consultant resign. So we had a spot open. And I advertised and appointed a school psychologist. So our team now is 1 full-time director, 2 school psychologists, a learning disabilities teacher consultant, and a social worker. Last year, there was 1 person in each building every day. That will remain. There'll be at least 1 person in each building every day. And the child study team will continue to monitor any difficulties. I think communication will be easier because if anyone is reaching out to a case manager, you can be assured, unless they're absent or at another meeting outside the district, they will be in Woodridge schools and can be reached and have contact with their students. As I mentioned on May 6th, one of my reasons for the recommendation is we dealt with students and their cases, and their case managers were in another district. And the rest of the team picked up the work and transitioned the case manager back. But obviously, students become accustomed to certain people. And even though we have cut staff, there may be a shift in terms of case managers. You might not have the same one from last year, but the same one will be in district every single day. And it is obviously a goal of myself and the board in future budget planning to help bring this team to a larger number of workers to help serve the students. I would anticipate, as our enrollment continues, similar to our multilingual learners, there's a chance to have more students with special education needs. And our team, I can foresee our team growing in the future. But I am very confident in the ability of my staff, the 5 staff members, to work every day in the district. And of course, if anybody has any questions or concerns, they can go to our director, Ms. Hill. They can go to me as superintendent, and I'll answer any question that is posed to me. And I look forward to having that meeting with the community and hopefully be able to explain again my rationale and, of course, take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alba. I'm also going to add that we need to make sure that we stress that we are not doing a massive cut, as been said in the past. We're going from 5.7 to 5 with all these people staying within district.
We paid for 5.7 people in our previous agreement. Moonachie paid for 2.3. Now we're paying for 5. And outside of the cases increasing by 3 or 4 as of now, I think the advantage is that they're going to be here every single day.
Thank you, Mr. Rabba. Okay, hearing of citizens, anyone want to speak about anything at all? No? Good? Good. Okay, closing the hearing of citizens. Trustees, anything else? No, we're good. Okay, motion for adjournment. Mr. Carvin? Ms. Milano, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much, everyone.